Hi, Harry, I'm in. 9 people are in the waiting room. All right.
Okay, well, as soon as you let me in.
I am right now, Harry.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Thank you for calling out.
Well,
Okay.
now, Harry, how do I make you the host?
Okay, good. Thank you. Sorry about that, folks. It decided once again to ask me for a passcode, which I don't have. Okay. This,
Harry?
Yep.
I should make you the host.
please.
How do I do that?
Go to participants.
Participants? Yep.
Yeah, you'll find me and see, click on it, and it shows you more. And there you can say make host.
More. Very good.
Yeah.
Okay. It does not give me that option, Harry. Allow participants to unmute, rename, start video.
Gary, are you doing it? You're logged in as Wellfleet Zoom. Are you doing it?
I'm logged in as Wellfleet Zoom, and I want to make Harry the host.
Yeah, so you should be able to click on more and make him the host.
I'll try again. Hold on. Participants, more. It does not give me that option.
Well, you have to be the host.
Yes.
That's weird. Usually it's pretty easy to do. Okay, well, Gary is playing around with that.
I texted Rebecca too.
Yeah.
Rebecca Russell.
Yeah,
She could
okay.
start.
Okay, well, it's 09, and I will call this meeting the Wellfleet Affordable Housing Trust to order. Meetings being conducted via Zoom, and the meeting is being recorded by the town. Anybody else desiring to record the meeting may do so, provided they notify the chair and interfere with the conduct of the meeting in so doing. Agenda-wise, I'm going to dip a little bit from our normal process and go first housing production plan project launch, and that will be JM Goldstone and Associates. And I guess we're both there, right?
All right, Harry, I figured out how to do it.
You did good. Okay.
So you are now the host.
Okay. So now I can make
Some people are waiting to
Una
get
a co-host, and so that you can share her screen. And who have I got in the waiting now?
Is everybody having feedback from Harry, or is it just me?
No, that's another problem that surfaced today that I had able to solve. Okay, I don't see anybody waiting room.
I don't either.
Sharon said she was trying to get in.
Well, perhaps.
She says waiting. Try again. I'll tell her to try again.
Okay, yeah. Well, perhaps maybe we can start just inviting Lana and to introduce us. What's going on?
Hey, Harry, so, sorry, I couldn't quite hear you, but I think you want us to present.
Present and also introduce yourselves. I don't know what's going with my today.
Sure, no worries. Can people hear me okay? Can you just give me a thumbs up? I'm coming in okay?
Mhm.
All right, great. Oh, okay, good. So I'm Jen Goldson, and my colleague Alana Zabar is here. Sorry, I'm mispronouncing everything tonight, Alana. We do have a presentation, but also just overall, what we'd like to do is get to know you all a bit better, talk about the scope of the project and the process and what to expect. And we also want to, well, first of all, thank you for filling out the project launch clarifier. That's always really helpful for us to get to know what your hopes are for the projects and what you're most curious to learn and what you see as opportunities and challenges. And so we're going to go through that. Alana's actually going to go through your answers and facilitate. What we'd like to do is really facilitate a discussion among you to help clarify your comments and also so you can, hear what other folks have to say around the things they're most interested to learn about this process and so on, or through the project and so on. So that's generally what we'll cover tonight. And again, I'm Jen Goldson, planning consultant, and Alana Zabar is also with Jam Goldson, and she is a community planner as well as a community engagement specialist. And we've done a lot of these types of housing plans, including on the Cape. And we're just really excited to work with this project, to work with you on this project. So Alana, why don't you go ahead and go to the next slide. And so just by way of introduction, as I mentioned, we've done a lot of housing work. My background, though, is actually in historic preservation, if you can believe that. I came to planning through a slightly different path than many planners by looking, really at the built environment and what historic resources do for quality of life. And then and this was 30 plus years ago now. And then I decided that what I really loved about communities was not just the historic resources, but the ways all these different components of communities create healthy, equitable, sustainable, and authentic places. And so about 25 years ago, I finished planning school and worked in 2 municipalities before opening my practice in 2006. And so the types of work we do in addition to housing plans are we do a lot of community engagement, community visioning, comprehensive master plans, and we also help with some kind of implementation initiatives for housing work as well as community preservation plans. And I was very fortunate some time ago now to be asked by Mass Housing Partnership to write 3 guidebooks for them. They've been updated a few times since then, but these are some pictures of the images. You may have seen some of them. Hopefully you have. One is about a general guidebook on housing trusts. One is an operations manual, and then one is about CPA funds and affordable housing. Next one. So in terms of our project scope, we're scoped to create a housing production plan, which will include a housing needs assessment that will be broken out over a few different chapters of the housing production plan. And we'll also, we'll be talking a little bit more about this when I get to the slide on the schedule, but we're also going to be running a number of different community engagement opportunities. we'll be incorporating a development constraints analysis. So we'll look at your zoning and your infrastructure constraints, natural resource constraints as well. And then we'll be working with you all and the broader community to create housing goals and strategies that you want to incorporate into this 5-year plan. The plan will also have an action plan matrix. Towards the end of the process, we'll give you a matrix that lists all of the strategies that you come up with throughout this process and identify who's responsible for those strategies, for implementing them, and over what time frame in that 5-year period. Next. And so the schedule is this was the working group. Okay, got it. I was confused. So we met with a smaller group that we're calling the working group back in August, and now we're here meeting with a more formal kind of public-facing kickoff with we thought after talking with the working group that it would make sense to invite all of your boards and committees to participate in these meetings that we'll actually have throughout the process. So you can see September 28th is tonight, where we'll review, the schedule. What is this project about? Alana also has created a draft survey that we want to talk to you about to see if you have some changes on that. Then what we'll do is in late October, we've actually moved this date, but now it's October 27th. Alana and I will actually come out and spend the day, a good part of the day at least, touring around with a few of you to get to know the community a little bit better than we do now. And we'll also hold 4 in-person focus groups, and we can talk more about that. I think Alana's been working already with you on getting those going. And then actually, Alana, sorry, I forgot to tell you, we'll need to shift this deadline since we shifted the focus groups out. What we want to do is incorporate the findings of the focus groups and what we hear from people at the focus groups into our first submittal to you, which will be the chapters that will make up your needs assessment. And we really like to incorporate what we hear from the focus groups. And so we'll just need a few more weeks on that. And we'll want to I'm sorry, I should have realized this earlier today when Alana created this schedule, but we'll just want to shift out that November meeting to accommodate a little more time between the 4 focus groups on October 27th to allow us to really integrate those findings into the chapters of the needs assessment. And so I think what we'll look at is more, give us at least 2 weeks after those focus groups to finish preparing those chapters. And then we'll want to meet with you on Zoom. So I'm sorry about that oversight today, but we'll connect with you on a new meeting date for that November one. And then what we'd like to do is hold a forum, a broader community forum, to share what needs we've found through the focus groups and through the needs assessment chapters. And we have a few exercises that we can do online with folks to help vision what they'd like to see in the future around housing. And then we will meet with you again in January with this group and share the survey findings. We'll close the survey down before that and analyze it. We'll also share the findings from the forum, and we'll have an outline of draft goals and strategies just so you can consider it and something for us to talk through at that meeting. And it's after that meeting that we really prepare the rest of the housing production plan. So in, let's say, early to mid-November, we'll work on an exact date. We'll give you the first few chapters, which will be the demographics chapter, the housing conditions chapter, and the development constraints and implementation capacity chapters. So you'll have those 4 chapters in, let's say, the second week or so of November. Then we'll meet with you, review that. And then in January, after we meet with you to review a draft list of goals and strategies, we'll revise that and then write up a chapter on the goals and strategies within a more narrative format. And then we'd want to meet with you all again in February, review that draft chapter, which will be brand new for you to see. And then we'll revise that and work on refining the action plan as well at that point. And then we'd like to propose that you'll be ready at that point to release the draft plan for broader public comment. And we'll meet with the planning and select board jointly to present the draft plan, take any public comments or questions, as well as planning board, select board, public comments and questions, and then prepare revisions based on public comments and planning board, select board review. And then typically what happens is the planning board and the select board meet separately in a regular meeting at some point after this and consider approving the plan. And then the plan will be to submit in April. So before we get into more specific facts about Wellfleet, I just want to pause there and just ask if you have any questions about the process, the scope, and the proposed schedule here. And you can just unmute and speak. I think we don't need to do raising hands or anything.
One question that's come up with regard to Maurice's campground purchase is the need for seasonal housing. Will this plan at all address that question?
Yeah, we do include all types of housing needs, including seasonal employee housing. I assume you're talking about rather than seasonal tourist housing. Yes, and
Right.
also
Worker housing, right?
yeah. Yes, so we would address the need for that type of housing as well as year-round workforce housing.
You're talking about getting a plan approved. What relationship does that have to the eventual RFP?
For the campground?
Yeah,
It would really be a separate process. I don't know what the status, and is there a working group working on the campground project?
yeah,
Yes, there is. I think it was just appointed on Tuesday by the select board. And I think that probably the timeline for an RFP to opt the campground will be way ahead of this process. The process of an RFP to develop housing probably takes shape until after this is complete. I don't.
Yeah, I think we have an interesting situation now with just having the whole Maurice's thing be voted. And I'm sure it will be discussed as part of this plan, but it's not the only thing that we're going to be discussing. But I think it might cause some confusion in people when they come to a focus group to know that they're talking about the whole picture and not just that one nice big piece of it.
Right. Yeah, and it's similar to when we're working in Truro as well, and they purchased the Walsh property, and that's going through a whole master planning process just on that property, and it is turning into a major strategy of the housing plan, but it's not the only strategy.
Right.
thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions on scope, schedule, or process?
In terms of schedule, have we resolved this with the original grant, which I think was finished by the end of the calendar year?
I believe Becky was communicating with the Cape Cod Commission about extending it, but I haven't heard a resolution.
Yeah, I haven't heard either. Okay.
And what kind of impact will that have? If
I don't think it'll have any.
okay.
Okay, so why don't we move on to the next slide, Alana? So just a few key facts. You may already know these, but your most recent housing needs assessment and action plan was 2017. The DHCD list online is as of December 2020, so you may actually have a different number at this point. And so we've asked DHCD to send us the most recent SHI that's specific to Wellfleet. So this may be a little off. So if some of you know the numbers very well, this may or may not be correct. But as of December 2020, it was 2.5%. Elaine, you're shaking your head. Is it the
It's
same?
correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Because they only redo it every 2 years, I understand. I didn't know that.
Yeah, you can, I mean, if you submit to new unit forms, a lot of communities will, submit those in between the bigger update. And then they give us, when a woman, Margot, who,
Claire.
yeah, Margot Leclerc, she'll probably send that to us very soon and we can see if that number's any different, but that's more updated usually.
Yeah.
Okay, and so if you were to, reach that 7 units permitted in 1 calendar year that count on the SHI, on the subsidized housing inventory, then you could get a 1-year safe harbor by having this approved housing production plan. So that would be the 1-year certification goal. And if you had 14 units permitted in any 1 calendar year, then you could receive the 2-year safe harbor by having this housing plan. Are people mostly familiar with that? I know I'm getting into that real quickly and I'm not giving you a ton of background, but one of the benefits of the housing production plan, rather than doing a housing needs assessment and action plan, the housing production plan is a tool that's recognized by the state that will give you safe harbor under certain circumstances. And these are the circumstances. If you produce 7 units that count on the subsidized housing inventory in 1 year, and by produce, I mean, they are, it's typically that they are approved. So if it depends on the mechanism, but if it's under a comprehensive permit, the zoning board needs to file the decision. And after that date, you can then submit for those units to count. So they don't have to be built. They don't have to be permitted with a building permit, but there are certain timeframes and they'll be kicked off the list, if it's not done in time. But that's basically how things get on the list. Other types of projects have different timelines, but that's typically how it's done for a comprehensive permit. Tell me if I'm speaking in, I'm jumping too far ahead without giving enough information. It's tough with housing groups because, you may have a variety of, levels of knowledge around this, but.
So just to clarify, safe harbor means that we wouldn't be, that nobody could do like an unfriendly 40B.
Yeah, the zoning board would have the authority to deny a 40B that does not meet local needs. They could also impose more conditions than they're allowed to do under without the safe harbor. So It gives you protection.
Would having safe harbor affect possibly the way Maurice's would be treated?
Well, it's a town-owned property now, right? So, soon. So I don't think that it would. Typically, if the town is initiating, then the town will want to do it. And I don't know if you're thinking of rezoning for a potential development or doing under Chapter 40B as a comprehensive permit. But presumably, if it was done under comprehensive permit, the zoning board would be inclined to approve it if it was a project of the town that the town was sponsoring.
Okay.
And there's nothing to say a zoning board cannot approve a 40B if you've reached this safe harbor. You still can approve 40Bs. You just have more discretion over what is approved. Okay, yeah, you're welcome. Let's keep going. So, we talked about the subsidized housing inventory, and the purpose of a housing production plan, though, I always like to say it's not really just about making that 10%. It's also meant to just understand your local and regional housing needs and work together as a community to try to come up with some strategies that can really help you address those needs. And I think particularly on the Cape and the communities that we've worked in, that's almost more important to folks than trying to get to their 10%. Next. Okay, so Alana, you want to take over here and talk about the project launch clarifier results?
Yes, thank you. So my name is Alana. I know we sort of did introductions already, but I just wanted to kind of reiterate that my name is Alana. I'm a community planner and engagement specialist at JM Goldson. And so we had all of you fill out the project launch clarifier, which we got 14 responses for. And you may remember some the questions that we asked you on top of just sort of, what project are you working on, were, what are the top 3 hopes for the project? What are you most curious to learn throughout this process? And what do you view as the greatest housing challenges? Oh, I see there's a typo there, my apologies. And the greatest housing opportunities. And then we also just asked you to sort of identify sort of the big landmarks in the community that you might want to see on a map that we were making. So I just wanted to run through sort of the results that we saw. So when it came to hopes for the project, now, to be clear, this isn't all the hopes. A lot of you had sort of similar ideas. So I just tried to show the variety of ideas that were here. But the big things that I got out of this were, you're really looking for sort of tangible data, numbers that kind of identify the need for affordable housing, who needs affordable housing, what does that housing look like, and how do you reach that? And so this interest in making sure that housing is accessible for folks and it's attainable for folks. And I really liked that. I took those 2 words from this robust plan for meeting Wellfleet's affordable and attainable housing goals over the next 5 years. And I really like that. But also sort of this underlying idea of the need for building community engagement was really prevalent in this question and the answers that you all provided. And I want to confirm that's also really important to us. We want to make sure that we are building a plan that not just, is good for Wellfleet and meets Wellfleet's goals, but it's also a plan that the community is invested in. And so that's why we try to offer lots of community engagement opportunities so that people can really buy into the plan and feel like they participated in making it. Looking at these, I know you all took the project launch clarifier, so hopefully none of these are too surprising to you, but I just sort of want to gauge your reaction. Is this sort of what you thought other folks might say? Are there things that you thought about since that you really hope this project will cover?
At least for me, I think that they look very consistent with what my expectations were. I think something that come to the fore is that not just affordable housing, but we also have a situation where the economics mean that even attainable house not attainable, and also we have seasonal housing needs also that people have articulated and that are not well met.
Yeah, for sure. I think most Cape communities are really struggling with that right now, trying to balance the seasonal employment and keeping up with economic development. Yeah. What about other folks? Alrighty, well, if no one would like to share, I will move on, but I will call on you all again. So in questions of sort of what you're most curious to learn, I think there were some similar ideas, but a lot of different really great ideas too. And so it felt like for me that you all were really curious, how do we get there, right? We have these plans, but how do we make them happen? How do we get to the point where we are meeting the needs of the community based on, the former plan, this coming plan, and then really just truly understanding what the situation is in Wellfleet and what the sort of constraints are, what the need is, and then what sort of opportunities are there to get there, what resources already exist in town, what resources exist outside of town, like financial opportunities, grants, things of that nature, that can help Wellfleet build these, build enough housing to meet population demand and to be sustainable for future population changes.
Actually, the way I see in here that hadn't occurred, but seems to me an obvious inquiry is what can we learn from the 2017 housing production plan, and how well has it worked? What are successes and what are the less successful aspects of it?
Yeah, one of the things that our plan does stand to cover, and we like to talk about it in our public forums as well, is sort of identifying where the communities have gone from their former plan. And so we're just starting to get into that now, and it'll be part of sort of our housing needs assessment that we write in those chapters for the final plan. But yeah, I think that's really important to identify sort of where you've moved from the past plan, and, you know, are some of those other goals that were not achieved still, you know, applicable.
I also feel like, can you hear me? Because I'm having some computer challenges here. Can you hear me? Yes?
I can hear you, yeah.
Yep.
No?
Yes, Sharon.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. I feel like the things have changed substantially since the 2017, just because of the pandemic and low interest rate, you know, change in home ownership. And I feel like we can't really speak to that as much as we'd like to, because we don't really have the hard facts. So that's one thing that I hope we have more of, is we have had some people, one in particular, I won't say his name, who was like, well, what is your overall plan? Wellfleet Housing doesn't have an overall plan. And I'd like to, you know, prove him wrong. I guess I'd like to show that we do in fact about where we want to go.
That makes sense. It's a good thing that you're working on building a housing production plan now, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty, anyone else want to add in anything before we move on to the next slide? So I know there's sort of a lot here, and it's not an all-inclusive list of all the challenges that you all raised in your project launch clarifier, but that just is supposed to show there are some challenges that will need to be, you know, overcome in this project. And so a lot of it is sort of the ideas that we've already been floating around, you know, the service industry and making sure there's housing for the seasonal workforce to sustain sort of the economic development and the economic realm of Wellfleet, and this opportunity for young professionals and folks to continue filling in, you know, the employment, as well as more environmental challenges, things, you know, developing. You're in a lot of wetland areas, seashore area, the Cape Cod National Seashore area. And then truly making sure that there's affordable housing for people at all stages of life. So people who are, you know, young adults just trying to move out of their parents' home, people maybe who have lived in Wellfleet their whole lives, folks who are trying to settle down and start a family, seniors who are maybe aging out of their current home and looking to downsize. And then there's some other sort of more policy-based challenges, historic zoning, where allowances were mostly for single-family homes. We heard a couple folks talking about the planning board and the zoning board, and potentially hesitancy to support changes to zoning that will allow for a little bit more dense, naturally occurring affordable housing, and the price of construction and land right now. Yeah, so just sort of a lot of challenges. Is there anything that folks disagree with? They think they're not challenges? Or new challenges to add to the list?
Well, there's always a question of how do we fit the cost of doing projects like this within the available resources the town has. And that's been a challenge decades, and I suspect that will continue to be a challenge.
Yeah. Good
I
to
just want
know.
to put it in a good word for the zoning board. You said that the zoning board is problematic, but the zoning board isn't. We're not standing in the way of anything.
Yeah.
Right.
Good to know, yeah. So to be clear, I don't mean problematic in the sense of any sort of like political hardship. But I appreciate the clarification. Alrighty. In terms of opportunities, we heard a lot of sort of ideas. I mean, there is really this need to work creatively within the town's existing resources and build housing for the people who need it. And so a lot of the opportunities that you all raised included, you know, Maurice's campground being purchased and rental tax income and just sort of the strong support. People are starting to understand the need for housing in the community. And so hopefully that translates when it comes to production and people supporting production. And then just sort of opportunities where more so people offered ideas, right? Like we need year-round stable housing, Wellfleet, and the ability to work together, things of that nature. Are there? Sorry, go ahead.
I have to say one of the strengths that I think has surprised some people who live out Wellfleet is the depth of community support and the near unanimity, and then voter support over the last couple of years for housing initiatives, and that's something that we can build on, but also creates a responsibility to deliver.
Yeah, that's fair.
And certainly housing production allows us to say this is the roadmap where we do have a plan, and you write it, and this is what we're trying to do.
Yes, that's the whole intention, right? To leave you all with something concrete and actionable that you can implement to sort of work towards achieving Wellfleet's housing needs.
I feel that this might go back to challenges, and I don't think it was really addressed that we have some strong support and some strong projects going forward, but we have an incredible need right this minute. And what in the world can be done to keep people committed and to keep people living here as we have, go forward.
That's a really, really good point. Thank you, Elaine.
Some short-term strategies to encourage people to lend a hand somehow.
Would anyone else like to share either, challenges or opportunities or sort of other thoughts on the project launch clarifier? Do you all feel like you're sort of all on the same page now? Part of the reason we do that is to sort of understand what all of y'all's intentions is with this plan. That way we can make sure we're truly building a plan that meets the community's needs. So we want to make sure that you all are on the same page too.
We know intuitively that young people aren't staying and aren't coming to Wellfleet. And in the last plan, there was a figure of 62% in the ages, I think it was 25 to 50 or something like that, had left. And I'd be curious to know, is that a valid statistic? How has it changed over the last 5 years in another census? So I think that that's a compelling argument within the community and a compelling need to figure out how do we address homes for young people.
About demographic changes, there are continue along that trajectory.
Yeah.
I think the enrollment at the Wellfleet Elementary School probably would suggest that that is true, that that trend is continuing.
Yeah.
But I think it's one data point that we use often, and it's become like a rallying cry
Yeah.
for support for affordable housing is if we don't do something soon, we're going to lose all our young people.
Yeah, and our plan will look at school enrollment trends as well. So that we do look at school enrollment trends and also like the breakdown of age and sort of age projections done by the UMass Dartmouth
Donahue-
Institute. I want to say it's the name.
Donahue
Institute. Yes, the name was escaping me. Thank you. I appreciate that. As well as the Mass DOT projections. Yeah.
There are also, by the way, is a educational plan that the Nauset Regional School District did in deciding and proposed the target enrollment for the renovated school, and it's got a lot of demographic information, including deaths, population change by age, and that's filed with the MSB.
Yeah, we love to look at other local data and plans. So anything sort of that nature, please feel free to send to us. I'm gonna shift gears a little bit here. So I know that in sort of the materials that we sent out, we did include a draft survey, and this QR code does link to the preview mode. So we encourage you all to sort of take the survey and explore different, depending on how you answer, the next questions will populate. We have different questions for people who live in town like year round, or folks who maybe own property, whether they rent or they own. We have different questions, and so we encourage you to sort of go through as different, put on different hats and make sure that you like the way that the questions are asked. And then I know there wasn't necessarily as much time, so we will accept feedback up through next Friday on this survey, and we're happy to sort of make changes. One thing to note is that in the materials that we did provide, there is a PDF version, and the question about neighborhoods has since changed. We were sort of working with the working group to determine how to break down neighborhoods, and we determined we do like to ask folks where in a community they live, but without such specific questions like what's your address, to allow for anonymity. But just to sort of understand if people who live in one area feel differently or, you know, really strongly about certain topics. And so we decided to break it down by North and South Wellfleet, and we are using the assessor's maps to showcase that difference. So there is an image of the maps. So all this to say is that is available on sort of that live link, but the PDF version was downloaded prior to that creation. So if you're looking at the PDF, you won't see that, just so you know. But yeah, so I know that I had sent Harry the link, and I can pop it in the chat as well. That way you all have the link to the survey. And again, this is just sort of the preview link. So it won't record your answers, it won't impact the results, anything of that nature. This is just a way for you all to test it out and see if you like it. And then I do believe that was sort of the end. We have a little thank you slide, but I'm not gonna share my screen again for you all to just look at our slide that says thank you, but we're happy to answer sort of any questions, comments. I know we just kind of threw a lot at you, so happy to talk through anything more.
Any comments? Additional thoughts? Okay.
I'm also popping my email into the chat. That way, if you do have feedback, you have my email there that you can write down, copy, paste, whatever you need.
So you will receive any feedback we have from the survey, Alana. Yeah.
Yes. Any feedback you have on the survey, you can send to me up through next Friday.
Mhm. Yeah.
The
Is-
7th. I'm sorry?
The focus groups, do any of them focus on people who aren't current homeowners?
So we invited our working group to determine who is invited, and the focus groups themselves are not specific to any sort of identity. Folks can sign up for whichever group they want, but the list itself was pretty diverse. I don't know if someone from the working group wants to kind of jump on that.
Well, I mean, it was our understanding that the focus group people were to be like our townspeople that have some expertise or involvement with housing. I think the first list we put together was all kinds of people that weren't in that group, that we will definitely invite to the focus group, but this was more the intent to have people that have been involved some way or thought about it or that. I bet there's not one person on that list that's not a homeowner, and we should maybe think about that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, we do encourage in terms of the focus groups and interviews, we like to get a wide diversity of sort of opinions and perspectives, but we do also encourage that they are folks who are more knowledgeable. The focus group and interview helps us frame our sort of existing conditions. So we like to connect with folks who have a little bit more information, and then our public participation opportunities a little bit later in the plan when we're sort of working towards these strategies and goals. That's when we like to really broaden it to just general community members, people who maybe have differences in sort of their housing tenure. Do they rent? Do they own? Are they experiencing housing instability? And we do try to reach them more in our forum and survey aspect. That way we can sort of understand their perspectives as well. But the focus groups and interviews are more so to understand sort of the structural side of housing and what exists in Wellfleet today.
What are will it be up to us, the strategies to get the survey out to the public? And what was your experience in Truro with the survey? How did that go?
Yeah, let me speak to that. So Truro decided they didn't want to do the survey because they had done work with their comprehensive plan and felt like they had covered housing issues through that work. So we didn't have, we try to gear the housing survey really more around more specific housing needs that people can kind of report to us through the survey, in addition to asking some policy questions, but it is different from what you would typically ask in a comprehensive plan survey. So we didn't get that information, unfortunately. The town just felt like maybe people were surveyed out or something. So we weren't able to do that.
Mhm.
But in terms of how to push it out, Alana, maybe you can describe that more around the graphics we provide and the
Yeah, of
outreach
course.
list. Yeah.
So we want to make sure that you all are fully equipped in order to push outreach for this. We do put the outreach part in your hands, but we provide an outreach plan with lots of ideas that are really tailored to your community. I go through lots of Googling to sort of understand where community lies. And it's not an all-inclusive list. If you have ideas that are not on the list, you are more than welcome to obviously push outreach, but we provide you with marketing materials, flyers, sort of email content, press releases, social media blurbs and posts that you can put out. And that's why it's super helpful to be sort of connected in the town with our working group. And we have Rebecca who will be able to sort of help out with that. And I know all of you are well connected in your community. And I think the ability to reach out to your peers and their peers and word of mouth is super important. I'm not explaining this well, but we will provide a complete outreach plan that sort of details ideas for where you can spread these marketing materials to reach different sorts of identities, age groups, people who are renters versus homeowners. We really try to think about it all when we provide this list for you.
Can you give an example, Alana? I know we've just done this pretty recently for Truro, maybe an example of what kinds of things are on that list.
Yeah, of course. So in most communities, we find that, the people who are taking the surveys tend to be somewhere between, 35 and 54, I want to say. Those are usually the age brackets that are most likely to take it. And so something that I've been pushing with almost every community that we've been writing these outreach plans for is connecting to the schools. I think there's a lot of untapped sort of potential for civic engagement with students. Students who are, high schoolers are understanding the systems around them. They're seeing either their friends are moving out of town, they're seeing their parents sort of feel this pressure, they're starting to think about what comes next for them, and they're not really sure. And so lots of schools have like civics classes where students are learning about civic engagement. And so the potential to connect with a civics professor or a teacher, or potentially there are student organizations that are involved in sort of, human rights issues, or even sort of like student government, people who are interested in government. That's one way. We also look at sort of, I like to go through the library calendar of events to see if there are any sort of big public events that might be. Libraries are also an opportunity that people are subscribed to, like town newsletters, library newsletters, Council on Aging newsletters often reaches sort of that older demographic. And that's just sort of one example for age diversity, but we go through sort of, we think about lots of identities, and I look into local nonprofits and community groups, civic organizations. And so we encourage you to connect with lots of different spaces, whatever you have the capacity to do to get the word out.
What kind of number do you consider like a good level of response?
That's a great question. We've been sort of mulling this over for us. So most communities get less than 1% of their population to respond. And
Wow.
so that's sort of the average. We really try and push communities to get somewhere between like 1% and 5% of their community to
Wow.
respond. And so I don't remember your population number off the top of my head.
3,000.
Roughly.
So I definitely think you can get, 1% of 3,000, what is that, 30 people?
Oh, yeah.
So I think you can handle 30 people. I think you can probably get 5% of your population there.
I think we can get lots more.
I think you can get more. I think you can get more too. I think in smaller communities, especially, word of mouth goes a long way.
Yeah, I mean, the other point is that, your population just under 3,000. I just looked it up. It's like 27 something. 27, 20. Oh, no, that's old.
Yeah.
It went, yeah, I don't know.
3,000 now.
Okay, just over 3,000. So, but you also have, a lot of second homeowners. I would suspect that's not counted in that population. And we do in other Cape communities reach out through there's a part-time homeowner association or some other type of group like that. So that's something else to consider as well. And we have people identify their affiliation on the survey so that if you want, we can sort, we'll do year-round residents say something different than part-time residents, do homeowners say something different than renters, do people of different ages say something different? Are there any, we can filter the results. So that's often interesting to look at. And sometimes we do it and we're like, no, everybody's saying the same things. It doesn't even matter what their age is, but at other times we find something different. I think, was it Karen, you were looking to speak?
I just wanted to say, can't you approach the elementary school and ask parents that would be the people we're trying to reach, I think, and that would be a good place to look. That's all.
Backpack.
Definitely.
Have any towns ever given incentives for filling out the survey? Those free beach stickers that we didn't get at town meeting this year?
We have done things like that to come to public forums, and it's a little hit or miss. I think that if people are interested in what's going on in the town, the gift certificate or whatever the giveaway isn't really why they're participating. It's can be fun. We did one public forum a while back. Someone happened to have forget now if it was a canoe or a kayak in their garage that they wanted to get rid of. So they auctioned it off. It wasn't an official auction, but they brought it to the forum and we used it in all of our advertising, and it was a pretty good turnout there. Who knows if it was because of the canoe, but it was fun and it added that kind of, but that's more for in person. I can't remember doing it for a survey. It's possible, we've done so many over the years, but I don't recall doing something like that for a survey. It gets a little complicated with a survey because we typically allow them to be anonymous. And then you have to ask people for their contact information and their names, and it gets a little, you can do that, but it just gets a little more awkward because we're asking people to share information that they may or may not want to say in public, that kind of thing.
Right. Can I ask a question about the focus groups?
Yeah.
So I know they're not going to be recorded. How do you keep track of the information, voices that you hear?
Yeah. So we basically use a virtual version of sticky notes. And so what I think Alana's probably asked to be in rooms for these, that we can have audio, visual, a projector, so that we can project our screens. And the reason we do that is because Alana and I were tag teaming on this. So Alana's going to run 2 of them and I'll run 2 simultaneously. And what we both do is we have something called a Miro board that we project so that everybody who's participating can see what we're typing. And we do that. They look like little Post-it notes, but they're actually just, virtual Post-it notes. And we basically type out the gist of everybody's comments as they're speaking, and then we can sort them. We can pull the Post-it notes. We can start to make categories like, oh, here's a group of things that people are talking about seasonal employee housing. Here's a group of things that people are talking about the campground or whatever it is. And it becomes more interactive than just sharing your notes and keeping a running list or like minutes. And we also use it to, start to get people to comment on other people's comments and to really start to digest everything we've heard. Let's look at all these comments. Is there anything here that we're missing? Are there any points? So we find that having that visual and that becomes the meeting, recording in a way, is our notes. The other thing we like about it is people can then correct us if, we always give them permission. Like if you see that we're summarizing what you're saying, but you don't think we're getting it or saying it in the way that you want us to say, you can correct us because you can see it right there. And then we can create a summary. We can export those little Post-it note entries into an Excel spreadsheet, and that becomes a kind of a transcript of what we heard. And then Alana actually also creates a summary of all the 4 focus groups, looking at the themes that came up and looking at what are some common themes, maybe what are some different things. And we'll provide you with a written summary that includes the transcription of everything we typed.
Excellent. Thank you.
The feedback, we had our Outer Cape peer group meeting yesterday, Eastham through Provincetown, and Truro reported on their process, and they said that the people in their focus group said they really felt heard.
That's
Very
great.
positive.
That's great. Good. Yeah, we really learn a lot at these focus groups, so they're really beneficial for us as well. All right. Well, I don't know if there are other questions. I think you have more on your agenda, so we don't want to take up too much of your time, but we're also happy to answer any more questions that you might have.
I'm good.
Anybody else? Last chance? Well, thank you. This sounds like a good start.
Thank
Great.
you.
Well, we're excited. And one thing Alana and I realized is that we haven't pinned down the working group meetings yet. We haven't pinned down the rest of them. So Kenyetta, our assistant, will be getting back to the working group members. And just what we'd like to do is set up a meeting a week prior to each of our bigger meetings, with this group, so that we can just prep and understand the agenda and that kind of thing. So you'll be hearing from Kenny pretty soon about lining those up, and we'll also follow up just to move that November date so that we can have a few more weeks after the focus groups to get the rest of the housing needs chapters done for you.
Okay, great.
All right. Thank you so much. It was nice to
Thank you.
Thank
meet you.
you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a good
Bye.
night.
Bye now.
You too.
And
Okay,
thank you.
okay.
Okay.
Back to the rest of our.
Scheduled program.
Yes, our regular programming will resume now with any announcements and public comment.
Yeah, I have one.
Mike?
Last night at the select board meeting, we just approved the charge for the Maurice's Campground planning group. And so that's kind of an ongoing decision as to how we're going to construct that, but we approved the charge for it last night. And I think we'll be sort of forming the basis of that group with the select board appointing the majority of the members and the town administrator appointing 2 members to that planning committee. So keep your eyes open. I think it will go out to boards and committees that have a stake in what happens there. And then, that's as far as we got last night. It was about 10:30 p.m. by the time we got there. So
Have the appointments taken yet, Mike?
no appointments yet. Basically, we're going to determine how we want to construct it, whether it's going to be mostly members of boards and committees, or and some public at large. We don't have a definitive number of members yet. We just approved the charge for the committee last night.
And then there'll be
Yes.
an application process. Is that
There
right?
will be some sort of application process, or at least a notification to the boards and committees. We're not sure exactly. We haven't gotten that far. We just wanted to go over the charge and approve that. So that's where we got, but just so
Is
everyone's aware that we've begun the process.
Is that different from the group that's supposed to be working on the RFP for campground operations? Or is
Yeah,
that
that's separate. This is
subsumed?
about the
Okay.
planning for future use of the property. And that should be published pretty soon, that document, if it's not published yet. We did approve it last night. And then the other thing we did was approve the creation of a stakeholders group, similar to, modeled after what exists in the Herring River Restoration Project, so that immediate stakeholders would be apprised of information and could advise the planning committee in an advisory capacity, but also just be sort of brought in on developments and informed of what developments have been taking place and what's going on in the planning process, so that there's those immediate stakeholders, abutters, people like the drive-in theater and area residents would be part of that stakeholder group with some other people as well. But that has not been appointed either. We just approved the creation of that. So, yep, that's where we are right now. So.
Mike, Ryan had sent us the preliminary charge. I don't know how much it changed.
It didn't change much except for the optional section on there, because we felt like it was a little prescriptive and we wanted it to just be a comprehensive plan for the whole property. So we left out the explicit language about the store and stuff like that.
Anyway, I just wanted to say, Michael, that we did send it to Jennifer, and she did post it as part of the material for today's meeting. So you can take
Okay.
it there.
Yep.
Okay, other announcements? Nope. Okay, Other housing related status items, the zoning board is scheduled to meet tomorrow. Is that good, Elaine?
The zoning board approved the comprehensive permit for 95 Lawrence Road on Thursday night.
Mhm.
Very,
Hey,
very big step.
huge.
So that will allow POA CDP to really work hard and try to get in on this particular funding round for it. Jay Coburn had an interesting thought that he felt Wellfleet and Provincetown should get together with Sarah Peak and Julian Sear, because both our big projects are probably going to go in the same funding round, and to really advocate for getting them both funding in the first round. So he may be reaching out to Rich or someone like that.
Other housing related news and report.
Harry, our
Yes.
request for a submission in the fall tax bill mailing was approved by the select board, and we sent a copy to the printer last week. So that should be coming out in November.
Okay. Yeah, and maybe it would be nice to say, from all our recent housing events, the concert and the support it generated, and some incredible artwork done by Sharon and other people in town. What do you think, Gary? $10,000-$15,000?
I think it's more than that, Elaine.
More than that.
I was at Robert Schriefter's gallery today, and they had an amazing array of beautiful artwork that people had either donated, or artists were allowed to take their commission if they wanted to. Many said no, they weren't going to take any commission, and the gallery was not taking any commissions. So unfortunately, it might rain on Saturday and Sunday, but other than that, it's shaping up to be a really excellent event.
Can you just give us the highlight of that event, Sharon?
Yeah, so Saturday is kind of the big day where it kind of goes from 11 to 5, and at 11 to 12:30, Robert will be doing a bookmaking workshop. And then I don't remember exactly, was it 1 or 1:30? Elaine, do you remember that?
1:30.
1:30, Candace Perry will be putting on a play, a housing-based play, and sing along, which Elaine knows something about. And then from 3 to 5, there will be Katie Hickey and Jim Rohr will be providing music, and people will just be mingling and hopefully buying lots of art. So that's kind of what. And then Sunday, Sunday the gallery will be open from 11 to 5. But there won't be more events like that. And the show will run until the middle of October, so people can continue to purchase art and support the Housing Trust until that time.
Wonderful.
Right.
Should be good.
Sounds like it. Good. Any comments of town meeting? I think on the fact that the result was terrific and the support was terrific.
I thought it was interesting, Harry, that I think it was unanimous or almost unanimous on the floor of town meeting, but that when people got into the voting booth, there were, 250-ish no's.
Well, there were a lot more people voting than there were at town meeting.
Right. So, but I wonder, right, I'm not sure what it tells us, but it was interesting to see.
I don't think it tells you very much, because I think in any community there is a certain group that really doesn't to participate actively and doesn't spend money no matter what. So there's a certain cohort of, no matter what the issue is, whether it's a police officer or a fire truck or a school or housing. I don't know, it's the Puritan ethic. You should bring yourself up your own bootstraps and the heck with you if you can't, or what it is.
I wonder if what was in part that it's very hard to get up and have a no vote on some of those issues at town meeting when
Yep.
everyone can see your vote, as
Could
opposed
be.
to the privacy of the voting booth.
Hey,
I tend to think it's more people who don't show up to town meeting because they already know they're gonna vote no on everything. And so they're just bringing it to the ballot.
I was wondering, Michael, was there any discussion about moving town meeting back to an evening event to get
Our
more,
next town meeting,
yeah, to get more, a broader spectrum of people?
yeah, I mean, the conversations come up, I mean, obviously if we're doing it outside, we've been doing it in the daytime. So you were kind of taking things as they come. I'm not sure how much evening impacts the demographics at town meeting, really, with people with, children and stuff. It's harder for them to get away at that.
I
Time of day.
will tell you that many years ago, they did a town meeting study, and we talked to numerous towns, and all of the towns that had Saturday town meetings could not conceive of a weekday evening town meeting being a success. And all the towns that had weekday evening town meetings could not conceive of a Saturday town meeting being a success. So, you hold it on a Saturday, people will be putting in their garbage, they won't come, or they'll be, it's just an excuse.
Yeah, I mean, I think our turnout numbers have been pretty similar for these outdoor meetings as the indoor meetings. And I don't know what the, change in, age and demographics is between when we were doing indoor weekday and outdoor Saturdays. But I think some of that's to do with the timing of the year. I mean, like right after Labor Day, and instead of, when we do things in the spring instead of June, if it's April, people just tend to have a little bit more free time on Cape Cod. And, in October, November, December, same thing. So I think, getting people on a nice, beautiful day to come down to the ball fields, sit there for 6 hours, is a tall task, I think, to ask of busy families. So.
And to just
Okay.
circle back to Gary's point on the vote, Gary, we got a lot more people who voted yes at the ballot box than showed up to town meeting as well. And we also got more yes votes on the Maurice's question to buy it than on either of the others. So, I mean, we knew going into the meeting, look at what the tough week was we had leading up to it and all of the naysayers and negativity that was coming our way. So we know there's a contingency in town that doesn't support it, including from members of boards that, serve the town. So I thought that town meeting was such a pleasant surprise. And that the ballot box is a little bit more realistic to how, and even with that, I thought it was pretty pleasant with how the vote came in.
I was
Well,
impressed by the vote margin.
Yep,
Yeah,
70%.
I think part of it was the fact that we were really well prepared in terms of educating why this was an important thing to do, and that everybody who participated in praying or speaking at town meeting, really good job, I think, and they presented a case very difficult, and in fact, nobody tried to.
I think it was really wonderful for me. I mean, like when I spoke at the select board, there was nobody else there except for the select board. But at town meeting, it was really great to have this like strong team behind me saying, bring us your questions. We have answers. And, there weren't very many questions because they could just see from our faces. We knew what we had put a lot of work into it. So
Yep.
It felt good.
And somehow the select board managed to not say a single word, which is an amazing feat.
We
for a
were very
select board.
proud of you. And I
Oh.
think that in a lot of ways that helped for the things that Ryan presented later on to stand aside from, and that people weren't tired of him by then. It was like a fresh voice talking about affordable housing.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm sorry I was not there for the latter half, but I
Did great.
I'd had surgery on Thursday and I was out of gas by the time this was done. So,
Your presence was so important and valuable. And, you were there when you were needed.
yeah, well, thank
thank you,
you.
Harry.
I'm glad we got it. I'm glad done. And there's a lot more hard work ahead of us.
Mhm.
Next item is one I put on just because I saw that we had, the town had paid the bills associated housing angels based on a vote the Housing Authority took in November of 2021. Occurred after the town meeting voted to transfer that trust to the housing from the housing authorities go to the housing trust control. So I thought just into cleanup might be a good thing to a motion to by the action of the authority and authorizing payment of those bills. So this is just the lawyer talking. I apologize, but I really want everything we do to be documented and above board and beyond question. So I would just offer a motion to ratify and confirm the payment of the housing angels benefit expenses from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
So moved.
Motion,
So is there a second?
second.
Anybody? Yep, there's a
Second.
second. There's a second from Mike. Got it. Discussion, buddy? Okay. Roll call. Gary,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Elaine,
I,
chair votes aye. That's 5 in favor, none
What
opposed.
about Sharon?
Oh, Sharon,
Hello.
sorry, Sharon.
Bye.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right?
what? Harry, has the transfer been made?
Yeah, I don't think.
I assume the bill was paid.
Hmm?
It was $400 for audio services.
But did they actually
Gary?
make the transfer?
I believe the answer is no. They have not yet transferred the money. They're still reconciling it.
Yeah.
And we did meet with town accountants about it. But Harry, just as an FYI, we did submit the one bill as the housing authority for payment out of the trust.
Yep. Yeah, and I was just wanted to confirm that, that's all. So it's just belt and suspenders from me. Okay, something of more substance. Additional financial support for Biden and down payment assistance programs, and I think this came from,
From the housing authority.
from the Housing Authority.
Oh, wait, we're talking about the buy down?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So you want to talk to us about what we need to do?
Sure. We're about to launch our 9th buy down, a grant to buy down the cost of a house and put an affordable deed restriction on it. And the Housing Authority had submitted a grant to the Community Preservation Committee for $210,000 this year. The last one we did was $185,000, and that includes money to buy down, to make up the difference between what they can afford and what their mortgage letter is, and any necessary and approved repairs. And because there were so many requests for CPA funding this year, we got reduced back down to the 185. And we could go ahead with that, but we feel like, based on the current financial situation, inflation costs for people, and that the kind of house that might fit into the funding frame, the maximum resale price, might need a little more attention to repairs. We would like to respectfully ask if the trust would be willing to commit the $25,000 to add to the 185, so that we could go ahead and promote the buy down as having assistance up to $200,000, 10 set aside for the administration of it.
Mike,
What has the price of has the maximum price increased at all for the house that can be bought, or is that still?
Unfortunately, you want to explain it?
Is it 475?
Mike, we have been working with the HCD on this. It's actually gone down, Mike.
Oh,
And
my
For the
God.
3-bedroom.
let me explain why, and I understand their logic, even though it doesn't fit our needs very well. The maximum price of that 3-bedroom house for this buy down is $433,000, and that's slightly below what it was for the last one. And
464.
I'm not defending it, but this is how they arrive at that number. They use a formula based upon what you can pay as if with a maximum of 30%. With the increase in the mortgage rates, so that would increase the amount of money that people would have to pay monthly, and that would drive the formula so that it reduced the maximum selling price.
Now, what about, sorry to interrupt, what about the $20,000 down payment assistance program? Can that
Doesn't
be,
affect the maximum price, Mike.
the maximum price is the maximum price, and it doesn't matter how much aid can be applied to it. They're saying this is what you can afford to pay.
I think that the reality is the extra money, whether it's down payment assistance or whether it's this $25,000, will make more people eligible for the grant, because more people will be able to afford the mortgage, but it won't increase the selling price. Again, Kathleen, we've been frustrated with it too, and
But
we've been
I mean, it's so counterintuitive. It's like mortgage rates have gone up so the people can afford less. And we're going to take, in a market where prices are going up, we're going to now say we can only afford to pay even less. I mean, it's like, why have it at all? It's ridiculous.
And
maybe
even
we
when
could
we're
send you to DHCD.
subsidizing the cost so much, it doesn't make any sense that would be the case. But the
Right.
concern is that, I mean, there's a trailer for sale for $550 right now.
Right,
Or
we raised the
495.
same, we raised the same question, is that there's no house for sale that would meet the criteria of the maximum amount.
Can we just do our own buy down and not go by their rules? Why do we have to go by their rules?
EPA funding, right?
Well, I mean, the idea is the town is putting in so much money, we'd like it to count on our subsidized housing list.
But maybe it doesn't matter at this point.
Yeah, I mean, but then you have to decide how much really do you want to put in.
Enough that somebody can get a house.
Yeah, I mean, this can apply to condos too. Are there any condos available in that
Not
price?
year round, not year round.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well,
But my question, I guess, is removing the accounting from our stock of affordable housing. The likelihood of getting a house at that price now, 430, is so low for a 3-bedroom. I mean, I can't see I can't see it happening without somebody being like awfully generous outside of that. And I just wonder if maybe it makes sense to forget about counting it. We're about to do a major infrastructure project that will bring our housing stock up. And the most important thing is that like someone can get into a house. So, you know, if somebody's buying something at 500,000 and 200,000 is coming off the top, 300,000 is fairly affordable, especially if they have some savings and can get also the down payment assistance and an FHA loan or something like that. That's like doable. But 500,000 is really like, I went and looked at a house this week and it was 550 and it needs a lot of work.
And where do you see what it's selling for?
Yeah,
And somebody-
I don't want to know. I knew it was going to be way above and honestly, like it was a 2-bedroom. And it
Yep.
needed,
And
needs
one of the
100,000.
bedrooms is really not like even a really great bedroom.
And in my opinion, that needs about $80,000 to $100,000 worth of work.
Can
So
somebody clarify for me? I understand that if you meet affordability guidelines and only 30% of income can be used housing costs, limits the amount you can borrow. But where does buy down fit in? If there's a number that is the maximum amount you can borrow and the buy down is added to it, does that become the price that somebody can afford to pay?
Yes.
How does this work? So
Can I go back? I support what Michael was just saying, that maybe that we have reached the point where we ought to move away from the DHCD having it be on their list. But Mike, the big thing that I think we need to find out is, can we still use their deed rider and will they still defend it? So if there is ever a challenge, that's one of the big things they bring to it. So even if we wanted to go above what they told us and say it won't count, okay, we accept that.
yeah,
We need to figure out whether or not the state will still defend the program and let us use their deed rider.
Are you saying, Gary, in case somebody challenges that it has to stay affordable?
Right, as opposed to the town having to defend that.
but couldn't we put our own legal deed rider on there? I mean, do we need theirs? I mean,
Michael,
we
the
can
first few we did our own deed rider. And honestly, it was a little flawed. So that's when we adopted the state and integrated into the state program, but maybe it no longer works for us. You know, this market, and we heard today from the people who administer it for us, CDP, that they, you know, the rest of the state doesn't have the same issue that we have. And so maybe it's just we need to run our own program.
I think we do. I mean, it's one house, and if it's even one house we're doing a year,
Right.
it's more important that we get a family into a house than we get one more tick on our list of affordable homes.
But so can I explore that a little further? Let's just say that we wanted to go outside of DHCD guidelines. And let's say we would put a maximum of 500,000 on the house, put whatever number you want.
Higher.
Okay, 550, but
Thank you.
the question still is, people at the median income, what can they afford? And are you saying we'll put in a bigger amount of a supplement, a bigger award?
well, so if we are putting, so if we're at, I mean, honestly, I don't know if we could go to 550 with the current mortgage rates,
Right.
but I don't know because the payment, the monthly payment is getting pretty high. I mean,
So
Right,
let's just put more money in.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that if we were to put more money in,
we would have to if we were doing that.
Is there a limit to how much, how effective that is as a, as a strategy. So I'm kind of thinking, like if we could use the small lots, I'm just throwing this out there. If we could use some of these small lots and put one of those ADUs, which can also stand alone, that I saw in Maine, that would be like $200,000 on one of those lots. That would be a nice home for somebody. 2 bedrooms could be, I don't know how much a small lot would sell for. What do you think, Kathleen?
A deed restricted small lot.
It would have to be restricted.
yeah.
That's
So,
restricted before you can even sell it.
Yeah,
So you mean we would buy the small lot from the person?
I'm
Yeah.
just throwing this out as a brainstorming alternative, right?
I mean, I think it depends on whether they could build on the small lot, what the value of it would be, I mean, right now, the least expensive house, which is on Village Lane, so it's down by Maurice's, is $599,900.
It's a
And then
pretty
the
nice
next
house.
least expensive is $650, and that
What-
includes condominiums.
What about a lot though? A buildable lot?
Well, wait.
Well,
No
let's-
visible.
We're getting kind of far
Well,
afield.
let's back up a little bit. A couple of thoughts. First of all, the importance of getting it on the subsidized housing index, I think is at least in my mind diminishing, because if we're successful in getting 95 Lawrence Road built, we only need about another 6 units after that to meet our 10% state goal. So I guess not. Maybe I'm being interested, but I'm not quite as worried meeting a 10% SHI inventory goal. I am addressing the problem for not just big A affordable, but also attainable or housing. And so if you're not worried about it being on the subsidized housing index, and all you're worried about is making sure that it remains affordable in some enforceable manner, then we could go roll our own. It would be nice if we had the DHCD agree that we can use their rider and that they'll or agree that we can use their rider, but we've got to defend it ourselves. But it advances the goal of getting more affordable housing without worrying about whether it's got to go on the SHI, because I think we got a reasonable chance of reaching that goal, what we've already got underway. So there's some value in continuing to do this, even if we have to go outside the DHC guidelines of the program and build our own. So that's kind of my thoughts.
Also, I've
Agree.
got a mortgage calculator up here, and I don't know what the top income rate is to qualify. Does anybody know the top income for a family?
Yeah, we can put it up on the screen.
Is it like 75,000 or something like that?
More than, it depends upon the number of people, but a family of 4, it's almost $90,000 now.
Okay, so let's just put that in there. $90,000 with a down payment of $20,000 and a 7% interest rate would give you a purchase budget of $300,000.
That housing, that 30% housing allowance, does that have to
But
include
that's,
more insurance and taxes?
This is the total overall purchase budget.
I think,
Elaine?
yeah, I think what you're saying is, I mean, we were certainly hopeful, but we don't want to put a lot of people into a space where they're getting excited and it's never going to happen. But if we're going to change how we do it, we will have to go back to the drawing board and make sure of all the pieces to make sure. I mean, I don't, we might not even be able to use the CPA money if we don't.
Meet the affordability guidelines, right? It has to meet those affordability guidelines.
We may have to, I mean, if you really feel it's crazy to do it, we can put it on hold and look for a way to
Well,
pilot one to see how it would work.
But,
Well,
but just to give you a feel for the numbers, so Kathleen, let's just say for the sake of argument that we wanted to target $600,000 as the selling price, and that even that is low for Wellfleet.
Yeah.
We'd have to double the supplement from 175 to 350,000 to still make it affordable for the very. Michael, the number you just quoted is not significantly different than the DHCD numbers.
What, that doesn't include any, so what I'm saying is that if we put the price at
600.
this is really, so if we put the price at $520,000, okay?
Right.
And we had the 215,000, right?
200.
No,
200.
200.
Well,
The 200,000, and then
Yeah.
another 20,000.
No, another 100,000, Michael, would have
No,
to.
no, I'm just saying, okay. If you took, so basically what this is saying is you could afford a purchase of $300,000 with a $20,000 down payment if you made $90,000 a year. Okay, that's like the most you could afford with a 7% interest rate. So that means that if we are subsidizing a $500,000 house with a $200,000 buy down, then that $300,000 is the mortgage that they can afford right now, according to this calculator, what a bank would potentially lend. But that changes because there's a deed restriction on it, and we know that deed restriction affects the value of the house during appraisal process. And so there is a skinny fine line where there is a number, I think, that we could get to close to 500,000 where this could work, but I don't think really any higher than that, and still maintain the ability for somebody who is capital A affordable housing to be able to make the purchase. So I like, it looks to me like we could raise it up to like 495 or 500, but I don't think we could do anything higher than that with the current interest rate, unless we were to significantly increase the amount of money that we're putting into the buy down.
Right, I'm agreeing with you, Michael, that we'd have.
Yeah, it's about it looks like about 500 that we could do,
Right,
but that would still be the top of the income threshold.
right, exactly right. That's the nth example. I mean, the average person doesn't make $90,000 a year that's applying.
Right.
So, you know, that affects that, but.
It's still the
Yeah.
maximum though, so.
Right. So right
Well-
now, let me just say, we are ready,
Kathleen?
we're literally ready to launch next week a buy down.
Right.
Okay, well,
So
Hang on a
we say
minute.
we should put it on hold. I'm sorry, go ahead, Karen.
go ahead,
Awesome.
Karen.
Kathleen, does any of this make sense? There's a trailer over at Mayo that's going for what, 500,000 now? I mean, does any of this, I hate to be
Yeah,
a spoiler,
I-
but
I think it makes sense only because I think we need to have the tool in our tool belt. If we find the house, I mean, I have found a house the past 2 years, one market value
you're
and
lucky
one
with
that
that one.
and one that the seller was willing to work with us. So if we have this tool and we have, we're ready to go, we could potentially, I mean, there's a sweet spot, I think, between 475 and 550, where potentially, I mean, and there are some houses that sold lower, they're 2 bedrooms. I mean, there's one 3-bedroom that sold on Daniels for 585.
What about the one on Barker? What did that one sell for?
Okay, let's kind of dial this a little bit. I think if I could try and frame the question, given the changes in theirs that DHCD is will approve, does it make sense to run another buy down program, either with a $185,000 budget or with a $210,000 budget? If that makes sense, then we should consider the $25,000 request. If it doesn't make sense to do that, then maybe we should take time to figure out what does make sense.
What would be the harm to saying it makes sense just in case something comes up?
I
Is
don't think
that
harm.
like tie our hands?
But we'd have to
I-
reallocate the funding after.
Right, fair marketing requires us to say in advance what the amount is that we're going to do. So the answer is yes. If we have doubts about this, we should wait and reevaluate and look at, and maybe go back to DHCD and ask them the question, this program won't work for us. If we put more money in, what's the consequences? And do we want to put in, is it worth it to the community to let's just say, make a grant of $300,000 as opposed to $175,000 for some one family to buy a house? It's a legitimate question. I don't know the answer, but I think
I get kind of measure that again, say what our contribution is to build 6 units
right,
at 90 Florence.
right.
If it's the same, then sure, go ahead. But if we can build units cheaper in a project like that or a project at Maurice's, it may make more sense to spend our committed resources there than a single house. The plan was always attractive to me because one unit for $2,000 seemed like a bargain. One unit for $5,000 or $4,000 may not be a bargain as compared to some other we can do.
Well, it will be interesting, Harry, when we see the revised budget for 95 Lawrence based upon the construction changes.
Yep.
Since their submission, because even at the old rates, the cost per unit was $450,000.
Mm-hmm.
So even at 300,000, it seems like it's not too much to pay, but how do we feel about that?
I guess I'd like to know what tolerance CD has for us putting more in the pot and trying to do more.
I don't know if she'd want to speak. Belinda from CDP is on, and she did meet with DHCD. And I think we did ask them, what if we put in more? It still doesn't affect for them that maximum price. I think if we think it's unrealistic, we have to try to, but we want to do the program. We have to find a way to do it on our own.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we have to come up with more money. Frankly, I'm not sure the trust has another $125,000 to put towards this at this point. So
I'm a little concerned that there's an ask that's going to come from OSCD 95 Lawrence Road that the CPC is not willing to meet, and we're going to be the only people left for the checkbook.
Right.
I think that we just need to look into what is the threshold where people can afford it. Like what is the 1 and 2 bedroom price right now? Gary, for that they'll allow us.
Maybe someone else can look at this while I answer the question, but the difference between the 3-bedroom and the 1-bedroom is very small. Michael, it's like 400,000, 415,000, 430,000.
Right. So I guess
3-bedroom.
if we just have a threshold of like close to 500,000, increase the money by a little bit more than what we were even talking about tonight, more than the 25,000, then they can also apply for down payment assistance. Is that feasible that somebody could get a mortgage and maybe even get into the 2-bedroom unit, on an income at that level? I think that probably is. I think that we have a better opportunity of getting someone in a house if we can bump up that price and don't just make it whatever house at 500,000. You know what I mean? If somebody just wants a 3-bedroom, but they can only get into a 2-bedroom at that price, then we don't have to deal with those drops and guidelines, but we potentially could get someone in there, and there's the opportunity that something comes up that just isn't desirable to people to be bidding like it's just not in the right spot, and it's too outdated and whatever, and there's not going to be some kind of bidding war, and we could get it in under 500,000, you know, a 2-bedroom particularly. So I think we could get close to it and get some people in a house without having to dramatically raise the money. If we just said, listen, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, the threshold's 500, you know, and you still have to qualify. And it's much more likely than a house coming up on the market for 430 or 420 or 410. I mean,
It's not there.
Especially too with the new condo regulations. I mean, if some of these smaller associations allow for things to go year round, then potentially somebody could get into one of those.
Yeah, I think that's a big hurdle, but
Kathleen, how can you go in there if they're 3-season condos and then you have to go in? I hate to be the naysayer, but
They're not all 3-season condos though. I mean,
okay, all right, okay.
a
Okay.
lot of people have already made them year round
Okay.
because they want them to be better built, or they want them to be well insulated or energy efficient or whatever. So they're not all, you know, the way Jerry Parent would describe them.
Yeah, well, that's another.
most of them are air conditioned and insulated.
I think we should, I'd
Go
love,
ahead.
we should send all of you the buy down application that shows all the prices. And we should show you, we should also show you the figuring, the way DHCD does it. And you can see, I mean, there is an issue of fairness here somewhere that you have to make sure, like, I don't think you could say 500,000 for 1 to 3 bedrooms, because I just think there's a fairness issue that we'd have to really talk about. Linda, could love
Yeah,
to.
hi, everyone. I just wanted to add and confirm what Elaine said. You can put in as much money and subsidy into this program, and it won't affect the program. So that was confirmed with our meeting with the HOP coordinator, which is a home ownership program coordinator. So yes, you can put in as much subsidy as you want, and it will not affect the program. And I actually have the Excel spreadsheet on my tab here, and I was trying to put in the figures in the chat, but the chat is disabled, and it's a workable spreadsheet. So for fun, I put in 500,000 because that's what you were throwing out there. And it's based on the HUD income limits for 2022, based on 80%, but they do try to be conservative, and they put in 70% AMI. So putting in the 500,000 sales price, it calculated it, and it indicated that a homeowner would need to make 146,000 a year.
And the maximum.
That's prior to
80%. That's above what we could allow. Either that, they'd have to have 14 kids.
but that's prior to
Very
the,
well.
I don't think
In
they
Utah, you
would
know,
allow a 3-bedroom.
Belinda,
Yes.
just to clarify, that's the amount they would need to afford if they were buying that house without any subsidies, right? And that's how they calculate it.
With the subsidy.
That's with the subsidies.
Yes.
So you make $145,000 a year to afford a mortgage on $300,000.
Yes, I
280,000?
wish I could show
Sure.
you, because I think it would make so much sense if I just showed you and the different rates or variables that go into it. It includes the tax rate, monthly housing cost, the interest rate, necessary income you need. So again, the goal is to get their monthly housing cost below the target housing cost, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think they really don't want anybody going into a house they can't afford.
Yeah,
Right.
of course. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just surprised that it's that high. It's because the interest rates are so high.
Yes,
So,
that's
Belinda,
exactly what it is.
Linda, I think the question is, if we were to put more money in, would they let us raise the maximum above the 433?
No.
And the answer that you got back was no. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
To
So-
fit into that program where it counts as part of our affordable housing
So
stock.
the question is, right, then if we don't want it to count, but we still want to use their deed writer in their program, other than the SHI, could we do that?
I'm not sure about how that plays into the deed. So I'm happy to reach out to her with that specific question. I do know Provincetown recently did a buy down where they did not include it in their SHI. They just wanted to support the resident.
How much money did they have to put in?
I'm not quite sure of the exact amount, but I made a note to reach out to Michelle tomorrow to get back to you.
That'll
In-
help a lot.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
It
I
Elaine-
sounds-
believe it was for a $800,000 condo, but I'm not sure how much they put down.
Oh,
Oh, my word. Wow.
can I ask a question of Kathleen?
Sure.
So Kathleen, there's a house on Indian Neck.
Mhm.
Is there any way we could talk to the locals? No. Okay. I mean,
It is a disaster.
I know
of-
that. I know.
But it's in the 50, it's two structures. One's in the 50-foot, one's in the 100-foot. They both need a lot of work. The
know.
quote on the innovative septic is 75,000. It's
Ugh.
just really problem after problem after problem.
Okay. I was just hoping that there was some way
Okay.
person could, okay, never mind.
Can
I just
we
bring this-
kind of, Gary,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Harry.
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, what?
So I'm going to say, Elaine, it's a housing authority program. We're on the precipice of releasing it literally this week. Do you want to hold off on doing that until we get resolution on some
Yeah,
of the issues?
I think, getting this input tonight is really
Right.
helpful. And I think we can look into, it's, the funding we have is CPA funding, which means you could go up to 100% of AMI, which could help. If there's a way you can have a reasonably secure deed writer on something, I think we look into that,
Linda,
maybe
that's
we
another
want-
question for DHCD, is if we went up to 100%, the only deed writer I've ever seen is then 80% or below.
Yeah, I'm not even sure it's a question for DHCD. It may be for a lawyer.
Yeah,
Or-
town council, I think we could have,
Or Mass Housing
Right.
Partnership, somebody not DHCD.
it's
We know
just to
what
leave
their
the-
program is. They're
Yeah.
very, they're stuck. They have to do what they
It
do.
doesn't sound like we're ready to make a decision on this tonight. Does any disagree with that?
I agree with that.
Okay, let's just this on hold pending further information and move on to the next item. Is that all right? Okay. Next is financial support for the creation of accessory dwelling units, simple acceptance of CDP partner proposal for monitoring accessory dwelling units. I'm not sure that we need progress on this since the last thing.
No, we're waiting. They're working on it, but they haven't given us anything yet.
Let's pass on that one too.
Yep.
And on 90 Freeman Ave, I'm going to say the same thing because the assistant administrator said shouldn't even look at it until after town meeting, and I saw an email from Elaine.
She asked if we could meet Zoom with her tomorrow morning, Harry.
I think I have a 10 o'clock on the RFP for the campground.
Yeah, we do.
Yes.
Maybe try
And-
to, she wants to do it now,
Yeah.
but
Mhm.
shall we try to set up another date with her?
Yeah, I am planning to actually leave right at meeting for a long weekend,
Good.
but be back Monday.
Okay.
Okay. So let's see, what have we got left? 7, that's 8, 9. Okay.
Future meeting
Uh,
agenda.
Yes, future meeting agenda, and I've got let's come back to that and do minutes first. The December 17th minutes is off the table because what that was the joint meeting with the select board. And the select board open session. I had prepared some draft meetings on the minutes on the assumption that we did not have a quorum present. But I've since then found my notes and saw that we did have a quorum present. We did vote to go into executive session. So until I get that straightened out, I don't want to act on that. The June 6th minutes, I don't know if I sent them to you or not, but that was a meeting that didn't take place because we had Zoom catastrophe and couldn't
You
start
sent it.
the meeting.
You did send it.
Yeah, okay. So that was a very short set of minutes. There was no meeting. And then when we have the August 18th minutes that I sent around.
August 15th.
Yeah. So if we can focus on the June 6th and August 15th minutes, and if they're okay, approve them, and if they're not okay, fix them.
I think they're okay.
Okay, somebody want to offer a motion to propose
So
6
moved.
minutes?
So
That's
moved.
Gary. Second
Second.
was Sharon, I think.
Peter.
Any discussion? Okay, we have to do a roll call vote like that, but Mike,
Aye.
Gary, Kathleen,
Aye.
Elaine,
Aye.
Sharon.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, 6 in favor, and none opposed. Okay, so let's go back. Future meeting agenda items. I'm gonna close it. Hang on. Sorry. Oh, let's close that. Okay. This is, let me share my screen. This is what I have for a, what's going on here? Where'd that come from? Oh,
Oh,
okay. Here we go. This is what I have, and so look, starting with I4. I keep a list of everything I could possibly think of and throw it on an agenda, and then I pare it down. So right now, all I have is Gary asked for more multifamilies and bylaw review. I don't know where that is. It's point.
Commented on it.
Yes, yeah.
So the partnership, we set up a working group in the spring. It was Harry and myself and Andrea. I can't remember. Was it Sharon?
Jan Morrissey.
Jan Morrissey. I'm sorry. And really the question is, the only multifamily zoning that is permitted now is in the commercial district, which is a small strip along Route 6. Any other multifamily is pre-existing. And both with the wastewater coming into 95 Lawrence and proposed for Maurice's, as well as the IA systems, is multifamily zoning a viable strategy in other districts? And if it is, should we look at making those zoning changes?
So that's what we're going to talk about at the next meeting, right?
Right,
Yes.
right.
Not talk,
Okay, so I got that. Now, this draft request for proposals to acquire land for housing has sort of gone by the board since we've actually acquired some land for housing now. And we've got a lot of work to do on what we already voted to acquire. Support for creation of accessory dwelling units. We're waiting for actual program documents to review, or what was the story on it?
We're
Yeah,
waiting.
go ahead.
Go ahead, Sharon.
No, so we're waiting for the feedback from the CDP on, how they would help us manage our incentive plan and work that in along with theirs. I think in addition to the financial support for creation of accessory dwelling units, though, I would like maybe an opportunity to talk about other means of support for creating accessory dwelling units besides just financial.
Okay. Well, the way I have it on my draft agenda is just support for creation, so it's not limited.
Right. Broad.
Anything else to go on an agenda?
When is the next meeting going to be, Harry?
Monday, November 21st is what we have on the books.
I think that's correct.
Future agenda items, Harry, I'd like to consider maybe raising the down payment assistance program from 20,000. If that's
It is 20, up to 20,000.
yeah, to raise it higher than that, because that's a kind of a loan in a way, right?
You pay it back if you sell the property.
Right.
We're
And maybe-
working on a new CPA grant, Gary and I, for that program, because we only have enough left for maybe one. So it would be good to have input.
Okay.
Yeah, and also the is that to 80% of AMI?
It can be to 100.
Well, let's just fix the agenda item here instead of actually discussing it. So,
Just, Harry, I know it's not on today's agenda, but as a practical matter, we have to submit the application before October 17th, which is after our next meeting.
okay.
So
Um,
is it all right to ask Michael what he would like?
sure.
Michael, what would you like to raise it to?
I don't know. I just want to have the discussion about raising it and also potentially the income thresholds to sort of catch people who right now have no assistance in buying houses and are getting priced out.
Michael, the limit of 100% of AMI is CPA reg, so we can't go above that for this funding source.
Yeah, that's fine. I didn't know what it was until now. So
Would raising it to 25, from 20 to 25 be meaningful, 30?
yeah, maybe something like that, 30. I mean, I think 30 would make a difference.
Is that a request that goes to the CP?
CPA, yeah.
Or is that a request we have to fund it in some way? Or do we
Yeah, I
wait
mean,
until this? Okay.
I don't know about the funding source for it. I just think the program in itself, we should talk about.
Well, no, so it sounds like someone should make a request to the CPC, and if they fund less than what's for, then we should consider whether we want to step in and provide the additional fund.
Harry, we are submitting an application to CPA. Elaine and I are working on it.
Oh, okay.
So we can increase the limit, if you think worthwhile, up to 30,000. We don't have to give that out, but we can make it eligible for up to 30,000. We can't go above the 100% AMI.
Right. Okay. No reason not to do that if we don't have to, if we're not compelled to spend it unless circumstances are right.
Yep.
Okay, other agenda items? No. Okay, we ready for motion adjourn?
Motion, I move to adjourn.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Kathleen. Okay, all those in favor? Me,
Aye.
Kathleen, Elaine, Chair.
I.
Chair votes aye. 6 and none opposed. It's not 10 p.m. We are adjourned.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you
Aye.
all.
Hey,
Care.
Harry, you have to stop the recording.
When I end the meeting, it'll stop.